Hey, it's Chris. Should you back it? No, you shouldn't back any game on crowdfunding. At least that's what other people say. And you know what? They're not wrong. You shouldn't. It's not a pre-order system, as we've realized with several companies. Whole nother video. But where are things at right now? I'm going to talk you off of the ledge on why you should not back every single game, big name out there. So if you're looking for reasons, to convince myself, Chris, I should not do this, I'm here to help you. And if you look at this video and you go, Chris, I'm okay with all those reasons, go ahead and get it. But no FOMOing here. Let's go. First up, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. It's got $3 million. Just got a little over a day left. Check out my video, either right before this one aired, hopefully, if I did this right order, why you shouldn't back it. Why you should not back this. It's Awakened Realms' latest game. It looks good, he said, but overall, I think it's just missing a few aspects. The fact that they're putting out in the updates that they're changing mechanics, it's great that they're listening to viewer and consumer feedback. At the same time, with a delivery date right now, it says of April 2024, if I'm reading that correctly, and no rulebook, of a 36-page game with a combination of ISS Vanguard, Nemesis, Tainted Grail, Ether Fields, and a little bit of Metal Gear Solid, it makes me very concerned, because those are the types of games, these non-bash 'em up games, that really need some fine-tuned balancing. This isn't one that you can just have wild errata and wild just all over the place edge cases in order to figure out what's going on in this game. And that's what worries me. Again, this is the best value on all of these games, right? Like if you buy this core pledge, I guarantee you'll sell it for more than what you pay. Better than anything else that I'll talk about in this whole video. But are you willing to spend just $95? Because the fact of the matter is the vast majority of people that are looking at this are not just getting the $95 pledge. Also, the fact of the matter is they don't even put that as the first pledge. They entice you from a marketing standpoint to get the $215 one. Because why would you just want the $95 one and be reasonable and just, spend under triple digits? Because you can also spend $353, $534. Okay, do you want all that stuff? No, you don't need all that stuff. It's all superfluous miniatures, unless S.T.A.L.K.E.R. is one of your most favorite games. Again, the other issue that I bring up is if you're balancing the main game mechanics right now and you're changing some of them in the first place, if you have some of these expansions that are going to be based on or addition to some of those mechanics, how is that actually going to drastically alter things? Is that going to be an important issue? Again, 36-page rulebook. You haven't seen it. You don't know how much of these rules are going into these videos, so you just can't tell. There's just too many unknowns with this one to make me feel comfortable right now as a middleweight strategic stealth-based game. If you want something heavy, you go with Earth Under Siege. If you want something lighter, you go with Metal Gear Solid. Well, that's probably actually a worse value overall, that being said, but there's other things like Assassin's Creed even that are going to be available on the secondary market. They're going to be a little bit lighter. In addition, this is probably somewhere in between in terms of weight. Do you need something in terms of that weight? Also, people are wondering about replayability and the stickers, and who cares about that, right? 36 hours is plenty. You have way too many campaign games in the first place. Oathsworn, Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, Madara, Aeon Trespass Odyssey, Sleeping Gods, the next Sleeping Gods that you haven't even gotten yet. All of those things, and that's probably not even mentioning, other things like Lands of Galzir that you can go through as well that are adjacent. You have too many of these games. Don't get it. It's going to be a great value. You're going to miss out, and that's completely forking okay. So, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. number 1. Here we have Frosthaven, the Gloomhaven, the Grand Festival is what they're actually calling it, but it's really Frosthaven the second printing with a whole bunch of Gloomhaven second edition and Gloomhaven RPG. It's really Gloomhaven the RPG with a whole bunch of other stuff associated with it. And they're really, really, really hyping it, I guess for good reason. And they've put out a whole social media campaign about what's different and what's new, but that should have been apparent from day one, not be slowly revealed as the campaign goes. And so that's the big issue I have with this, when you're looking at these pledge levels, right? Like $180 is a huge price point increase for the second printing of this. And that's a lot more than I think what a lot of people expected when you go over to the pledge level here as a whole. Because if you go over to the main page here, again, it gives you all of these different pledge levels and you're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get hundreds of miniatures. But the real question is, do you need this hundreds of miniatures, right? Like, is this your number one game of all time? Are you actually going to use this for RPGs? Because that's really where they're marketing it for. They're really not marketing it for the board game folks. They're marketing it for the RPG fans who also happen to be okay with board game side of things. At least it appears to me to be that aspect, because that's what I also hear a lot of people say. Then, you can see that just the RPG box alone is going to be $90. Gloomhaven second edition, fine, $130, not that much of a big price increase. Miniatures, though, is going to cost you an additional $130. That's the price of the game. Speaking of massive freaking deluxeifications, right? $180, big increase. That the MSRP is going to be $250 for this game. People are getting numb to this pricing increase. Full set of miniatures, $325. Ultimate Gloomhaven, ultimate Gloomhaven. But I also like the fact, but also hate the fact that Frosthaven down here, if you go down and get the place for books, they actually got rid of the tiles. That $50 though, $50 for that. When I'm already in for well over $100 for a quality of life issue, that's incredibly expensive. And I understand the scope of things at all, but that's a massive increase. And why didn't you have that the first time around? You knew that was a big hit with Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Again, I'm not going to get anything from this campaign, but that's just a lot of stuff being thrown around. And you know, I wonder, I mean, this page is the biggest crowdfunding page, one of the ones I've ever seen overall. I'm just scrolling here and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And it's got $2.8 million, right? Which is great, which is fantastic, which is awesome for any other thing not named Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, or under the Cephalophoid banner. Because I also have to think that despite having 12,000 people, that's underperforming to where you thought it was going to be, because, you know, Frosthaven broke all the records as the sequel. And especially when you price increase things, are you pricing people out at some point also with this scheme from the miniature standpoint? Or is this just a testament to the market that if you say the majority of these people are just getting the miniatures, that is a great testament just to the miniature market as a whole? And I guess if you go to the pledge levels here, you can see a little bit more of how that breaks down, right? 2,000 of those 12,000 are here. 2,000 of the 12,000 are getting the second edition right here. 1,300 people are getting the big one pledge. 1,300 people are spending $550 just on miniatures for this game alone. Just the miniature of Gloomhaven, again, another 1,600. Only 800 people are actually getting Frosthaven. Is this one actually more divisive than you may have thought? I mean, because again, the vast majority of people are actually getting Gloomhaven related stuff, not Frosthaven related stuff. That to me is the most interesting aspect of this thing. But as a whole, I mean, do you want to spend this much money on things? Do you want to spend an additional $550 in a game that you have already spent hundreds of hours on, or a game that you will spend hundreds of hours on? I mean, will you actually spend 100 hours on it? That's really the question you have to ask yourself. Or are you going to be RPGing it? If you're going to be RPGing it, great. But I guarantee if you're an RPGer, how many of these other RPGs do you have? How many of these do you need? How great is this system as an RPG with the other established systems that are already out there that are, you know, again, people can name half a dozen besides the usual Pathfinder and D&D in the first place. What's going to make this one stand apart? And so I don't have those details. I haven't looked into this campaign much from the RPG side of things because I'm not an RPGer. But if you are, I mean, let me know in the comment section down below. Why? Why on this one over other things? Besides just Gloomhaven, right? There you go. Next up, Firefly, the 10th Anniversary Collector's Edition. Do you need promos? Do you really need a big fancy box? Are you getting Queen Gamed over here by Gale Force 9? Again, don't think there's anything wrong with the game. People like the game. It's not really offering you anything different from the core gameplay experience. So if you're looking at this going, man, maybe I should check this out. If you didn't have any interest in the game originally, this one isn't going to change your mind. This one is for the hardcore Firefly people in the first place. Not only are you going to get a new expansion, you're going to get all the other promos that were not available previously. And they FOMO and they say this big box is never going to be made again. And so, you know, I guess people have a big box FOMO weakness as well, because, you know, we see it with Stonemaier, we see it with, you know, a few of these other companies that, you know, we need a storage solution, and I give them kudos, because if people are going to buy it, you put it out there. But as a pick up and deliver game, is it that much different? And again, do you need 4 expansions for this? Are you actually getting this played? Again, this better be one of the most played games in your collection if you have 4 expansions for it. I just filmed a different video talking about the board game hell of the expansion hobby that we are in right now. And this campaign, just like the previous one, exemplifies it. Do you need all of these? Are you going to play all of these? Are you going to find that a couple are just better for you or more, you know, bang for your buck in terms of what you like, let alone, you know, the setup, teardown, and everything else that goes along with them? Because what you often find is that one is just uniquely better for you, or you can't even put them all together half the time in these games anyway. I can't speak to that, but look at all this other stuff that goes on, you know, with it as well. So there's a lot of stuff that goes, you know, they've hit a bunch of stretch goals. Again, I'm not going to worry about that. But again, how many promos do you need? Promos, you're never going to actually get them played. You're going to have them in a deck of 100 cards. There's going to be 2 promos in there. You might see them once every like 3-4 games. Is that worth it for you? For the extra money? Are you a completionist? Don't be a completionist. There's Firefly, hopefully convincing you. And if not, you can still like Firefly and do that. Scarface, Bloody Business. Area control. Do you want an area control based miniature game? If I'm going to pay $100 for an area control game, the only area control game that's going to get my $100 at this point is going to be El Grande from the secondary market. You know, I still think that holds up the test of time, and I don't necessarily need some of the worker placement, deck building aspects as well. But don't be fooled. You're paying for the miniatures with this. And it hasn't gone to wide retail availability. That's probably the biggest FOMO thing as a whole. But again, they're offering more expansions. Have you consumed the base game enough to need 2 sets of expansions with additional mechanics? How well do additional mechanics with a game that's already relatively not as clean as El Grande, not many games are, to be fair, do you really need more complexity in a game like this? I don't really know if I like that now or never, but again, in retail, what does that actually mean? I hate that phrasing. But here you go. All the stuff that you're going to get, right? Tons and tons of stuff, but this one's also more expensive when you go down to the pledges here. But if you get everything here, it's going to cost you over $100 for just the new stuff. Do you have or do you need a $250 area control game? This better be better than your Blood Rages, your Ankhs, your Rising Suns, your El Grandes. This better be the one that you love above all else to spend that much money on a game like this. Not that that matters, but that's something to think about in the first place. Do you need miniature based in this situation? It's okay if you do, but take that for what you will. Definitely doing something different with the theme. I give them a lot of kudos. They've definitely struck gold with this one from Reds and Games. So it's no wonder that they're almost at $1 million at this point. But do you feel better about it if you get it versus not? So again, another expansion-driven campaign. Speaking of expansion-driven campaigns, Tanares Adventure, the Ultimate Edition, it had $1 million, got 17 days to go. It's basically giving a big box solution for all of the stuff that's out there. And again, apparently a game that needed a big box solution that people also a little bit at the same time weren't terribly happy with in terms of it turning around just being after delivered to backers. But again, you're getting a lot of people in that were previous backers here. Upgrading kit, $35. Well, there's only 300 there, but here's the returning backer bundle at $3,600 or 3,600 backers. So a vast majority of backers are getting that. And so it's probably one of the best well thought of PvP. It's probably one of the best well thought of PvP, PvE games on the market. And again, this is probably second most in terms of value for content that you're getting. Probably not most resellable increase that you could make money off of, but in terms of just getting a whole bunch of stuff. So it's still going to cost you a ton of money because the Tanares Adventures with the improved core box as well as the expansion is going to be $200. So when I listed out all those other campaign expansion games, this one is right in line with this. But this one is a lot different than some of the other ones because you're using a lot more of the D20 mechanism here, and you're having at least some variability in the objectives and the quests than a lot of the other ones that sometimes are just smash, grab, bang sort of style. And this was one of the first ones to put more of that out. So I give them kudos at least from that aspect. So the question just is, can you do the standee? Team standee! $129 though. Still $129. It's a lot of money. I think that, again, these have some cool miniatures, but this is an all-in for $650. This better be your favorite game in the collection if you're spending this much money on any game, right? I don't care if it's this, I don't care if it's Nemesis, I don't care if it's Marvel Champions. If you're spending that much money overall, Arkham Horror, LCG, whatever, spend that much money and you love it. Cosmetic, though, is going to be almost $1,000. $1,000, folks. That box better be like inlaid with gold. Anyway, I mean, they've got a good product. You don't hit 7 digits on campaigns unless people really love it. It's just, again, which of these triple digit ones is right for you? They're not all right for you. And you don't want to find out by backing them all and finding out later. That's not a good way to go about it. Shipwrights of the North Sea Redux. Again, I stand by my statement that I really don't like the name. Should you get it though? No, you probably shouldn't. Unless, again, you're a promo junkie or a gold coin junkie, or you want these sleeves that make all of the, Paladins and North Seas and all of them match on the sides when you view them from your, aesthetically pleasing cabinets, which is clearly not my forte. Then you wait for this and you get retail. And Garfield says, you know what? Wait for retail then. That's okay with us. And if you want to back the publisher on the campaign, you do that too. And that's why you see the split of about 200,000, and that's what, Garfield usually puts out, and that's completely okay. They redid this whole game. You get 10 different actions of taking your raiders and going across a game I would be happy to try out at retail. Happy. Because this one is their lowest rated one, and they've said we're going to go back and redo it in the line of the previous ones that we've done. So I give them a lot of kudos. But again, just like the other ones, I'd wait and see at retail right now because you're not getting necessarily the exclusive or the significant price difference that you would otherwise with some of the other campaigns. If it, or should it show up in some way, shape, or form at retail, publisher shop, whatever you want to call it. So again, there you go. Solid game looking. Even better than the first one, but is it for you though? Should you get it now? DC deck building. Cryptozoic is going full FOMO with this one. I really don't like the combination of the pledges, especially in terms of this box cover, which is one of the main exclusives. Not a huge fan of the aesthetic of the Legion of Doom, although I understand it ties back into my childhood. And I'm just not as big a fan of the 1v1s because, you know, if I'm doing a campaign like this, as I say with all of these campaigns, right, like I want the game that's right for me. So when Board Game Tables or All Play does their campaign of 3 or 4 games at a time, right, you get the one that's right for you. Buying more to save more is still paying more. So if I only want the DC deck building stuff with some of the expansions, you only buy that. And now they allow you to a la mode it. And so you can get some of these other ones like the Rebirth one-shot packs and the Legions of Dooms separately. And that's what you should do. You should buy only these separately. Now, the only question is, if you get some of this stuff doesn't get you the stretch goals, I believe. Only if you get one of these higher pledge levels does it actually get you the stretch goals. And so that's the sort of thing that you got to just be aware of, because they do some exclusive. Now, again, does that really matter? Because, you know, they're promos like I just mentioned, and promos really aren't adding a whole lot. Yeah, I mean, that's just, again, something to be aware of right there, right? And they've got some new mechanics with this one. But again, with DC deck building, just like Legendary deck building, it's getting power creep. These new keywords, are they going to be too complex? Are they going to be too, unbalanced when you start throwing them in with the previous stuff? That's the stuff I worry about with these deck builders as they go through the iterations after iterations of like 20 or so expansions. There's only so much you can do until you just have to make it more complex invariably. So I think it looks like a solid game from a DC standpoint. But if you already have a bunch of DC, is this going to just replace some of the other stuff or make it obsolete? That's my fear. Cool looking stuff overall. But again, what's the price point going to be for a one-shot pack at retail, right? You think it's going to be more than $15? I don't know. I don't think so. But again, Cryptozoic, 2 successful campaigns with DC deck building in a row. They're putting out stuff that people liked. Although this one is doing noticeably a little bit lower than the first one. There you go. Pacific Ocean. Very nice, very pretty set collection card game. Indie card game. Back it if you want to support it, because this one may not come at retail. It's super light though, so don't expect like a super long game. It's 10 minutes in length. So if you're looking for something light filler with beautiful, beautiful art, go for it. The price is actually really good on this one. The question just is, how many of these can you buy? I guess that's the biggest downside I'll say with all of these small ones is, you know, $20, $30 here adds up. You know, you can't always get too many of these games played. You know, if you got, 6 of these that you just backed this month, how many of them are actually going to stand the test of time? And are you going to like one better than the others? I think it looks solid though in core gameplay. It's just, is it going to be more complex or complex enough for you from an overall standpoint? Invention of ideas. Speaking of complete opposite realm of things, it's a 3 to 4 hour Lacerda game that people have said mixed feelings, at least in the Board Game Geek forums, about whether or not it's as good as some of the other ones at a 2-player count. That seems to be the main concern, right? Like the majority of people that play these games, I've heard, I don't know, play them at 3 and 4. So you want to play 3 and 4 at 3 and 4 hours? Okay, great. If you're a 2-player one, is this actually as good? The forums suggest maybe not, depending on how much of that style of things you like, because I think that adds a 3rd player like Automa or Dummy Player, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But it's, to be honest, I'm a little bit thinking this is underperforming. And I don't know if this is because of price creep, but just like I said in one of the other videos when I was talking about updates previously, right? This deluxified Euro is the same as Chip Theory. It's the same as Awakened Realms, and we just talked about STALKER, right? Deluxified. Deluxified Euro components are no different than deluxified chips and playmats from Chip Theory, are no different than the deluxified miniatures plus or minus Sundrop from Awakened Realms. Where are you willing to spend your money? They're all the same. If you don't like one of them, you shouldn't like all 3 of them. So, yeah. It's okay not to like them. It's okay to say, I prefer this one over that one, but don't hate on the others because it's not your overall type, right? Like, I don't care if you like super good miniatures. I don't care if you like super deluxified Euros. But let's not kid ourselves and say that they're all drastically different in terms of gameplay content, because none of them are. None of them are gameplay content, period. Again, I think Ian O'Toole killed it. The how to play, all the stuff that you're going to get. It's going to hold up value. These hold up value on the secondary market because of all these little additional things that they offer you in the stretch goal box of the upgrade kit. So I don't worry about that, but it's price creep just with everything else, right? $129, which again, you go over to the forums, you go over to Reddit, you go over to Facebook, depending on who said what first. You have a bunch of people that say this is way too expensive. You have a bunch of people that say, hey, it's okay that we're paying him this much so that he can do this full time, or Eagle Griffin can, stay open as a publisher. I don't care. It's fine. But if people want it, they're going to put it out. So as long as people buy it, they're going to make it this deluxeified and they're going to make it this expensive. And if you don't like it, well, then you don't back it, folks. It's true with this. It's true with Stalker. It's true with any of these games. Be the change that you want to see. So if you want this one, the real question is, how does it compare to the other Lacerdas? And I'm not the right person to say. Go check out these videos. Go check out, try it on Tabletopia right here yourself, because, you know, that's the big issue. I see all the Lacerda people like, I have all the Lacerdas. Are they that much different? Are they that much better one than the other? Your mileage may vary, just like with dungeon crawls, right? You may find one particular one with slight nuances, and the problem is, you know, are you going to back them all to find out? That's why we're talking about inventions and ideas here. Crossbows and Catapults. 8 days left, almost $700,000 restoration games. It's huge nostalgia. It's great mechanics looking like this, but the setup and teardown is going to kill me. Setup and teardown is going to kill me from a kid standpoint, right? Because that's who I'm going to play this with. And I need something that's more self-contained. With the Catacombs 3rd edition that I got from Elzer Games, which is sitting over there, great, it's got the playmats. The other miniature version, the one that they made the 2-player version of, the head-to-head one, just too much overhead, too much upkeep, too much setup and teardown from a dad standpoint. And that's what I worry about with this. Now, again, your kids can do this and you can do this, but do you have a good play area to do this in? Because, I mean, look at this. This is larger than most sized tables that I have. And if you don't have a good table that's not only going to keep things within that boundary, but also wide enough and long enough, you know, I worry about from that aspect. I'm not going to play this on the carpet with my kids. I'm not. And so I think it looks really, really cool, but, you know, it's also looking more like a kid's toy that I pick up at Meijer, it's a local grocery store chain, or, you know, Toys R Us, right, than necessarily a board game. And I'm fine with that. I'm completely fine with that. If you want this, great. I think what they've done with the shooting mechanisms here look absolutely fantastic. And I think it looks solid, and I think you have better aim and control overall. But the pieces, the setup, the teardown, the actual space to be able to play this with, never going to happen for me. And that's what you need to think about when you're backing a game like this, as opposed to with some of the other ones, right? I can make all of the pieces and the boards fit in other situations. I don't need to have a certain amount of space or width or depth. This one you're going to. So just be aware. And if you're going to spend $150 on this one, just take that for what it is. A little bit of upgrade packs, you know, no exclusivity, but it's going to be a higher price later on. And they're going to put out a separate retail version. So just be aware of that as well. Eldfall Chronicles, almost $250,000. Doing great, actually. Much, much better. About 4 times the funding of the first one. Looks solid. Love the aesthetic. But it's a skirmish style game with measuring. So it also says you're having a campaign, a PvE, a PvP, and a solo. How many of those do well? How many of those are all doing well, especially with a skirmish style? Do you have any skirmish style? Do you get into skirmish style? Do you do this style of things in the first place? What makes this one that much better? That's my worry right there. All of that stuff. Because it's really hard to do all that stuff really, really, really good. Because I don't want, with a game like this, I don't want good. Just like with Stalker. That's my main hesitation with Stalker at this point. I don't want it to be good. I need it to be freaking fantastic. Because I have too many games. You have too many games. And I'm not going to pay $100, $150, $200 for an okay game at this point. Right? Because you're looking at that, right? $115 for just the core pledge of this new stuff. The deluxe pledge is going to run you $200 plus before shipping. Do you love it enough from those aspects with the dungeon crawl aspect vibe to do this? Again, this one is like high on my list of I'm interested in this one. High. Trying it out though. I won't spend $200 on a line of sight skirmish measuring style game right now. It falls outside of my usual scope normally. And if I'm going to do that, I got to get in at a price point that I can afford. And that's the biggest problem with this one in a nutshell. I think it looks fantastic though. It gives me like sort of Madara vibes. They're having a crossover with one of the miniatures from Senko Cushion. I mean, just some cool stuff going on. But it's also really expensive. I mean, look at these expansions. Expansion's 100 euros. Well, retail price right there. But 150 for the other core game. Expansion, 60 bucks each of these for 4 miniatures. That's expensive, folks. That's really expensive. And that's what a lot of these style of games do. Are you okay with that? Are you going to get your bang for your buck out of it, though? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Cyclades. I don't know. Mixed feelings. I see people all over the place with this one. They took out some of the stuff that was included with some of the expansions that they're sort of smooshing together with this one. The problem is the price point. This miniature one is like $150. This standee meeple version one is going to be like $60 in this campaign. But people are saying, well, that is, more expensive than the base game with an expansion or two you can pick up at the secondary market right now. Is it really going to be that much better? Are changing some of the gods, changing some of the troops, changing some of the process of the game actually going to be good? And now people say it's going to be streamlined a little bit better, a little bit quicker, but taking out some of the flaws as well. So I like the fact that they're actually changing the gameplay loop in that sense, that they're listening to criticisms that were out, over the last decade since this game has been at market. The question is, do you need miniatures with a game like this? I just talked about area control with miniatures, and personally speaking, area control with miniatures is not my preferred combination of aesthetics and deluxifications. And so for me, I'm looking at this Meeples pledge and going, do you really think that the Meeples pledge is going to be $64 at retail? And I have a hard time believing it from that standpoint. So just like with the Garfield game situation, I'm looking at this going, do you think I could get that for $50 at retail? Minus the shipping as well? So I'm a team standee, team Meeple. The only question is, do you need the modularity? Do you need the new gods? Do you need the new powers? Do you need the asymmetry that they've changed around in this auction bidding style for Greek gods powers game? And again, I think it looks fantastic. I love the aesthetic. I love what they've done with this so far. But you'll notice that a lot of these stretch goals are just alternate sculpts of miniatures, right? Like, here's a promo. Doesn't say exclusive though, right? Here's a promo. So really, you're getting all this stuff if you're going deluxe. If you're not going super deluxe with this one, you pass on it altogether. I see no reason to get it now. So it looks great. This one's going to be on my wish list as well to potentially pick up at retail as a game, or as someone who really didn't have any interest in auction bidding style games as the most part. But if you're going to make this better, okay, I'll take a look-see. But it'll be at retail though as well. Now, Waypoints. You can see there, I'm backing this one. I really, I don't have a reason to tell you not to back this one. Just kidding. Don't back it because you're never going to play it. Don't back it because it's going to sit in your print and play files, or it's going to sit in the pile over there and you're never going to actually get it played. But this is the best price point per game play scenario that we can do. And I have 100 seconds to talk about it while I'm filming this. So this is just a great game from Postmark. Their other two of Aquamarine and Voyages really set the bar. They got 3 or 4 maps all together with this one. And you're just going to see more because Postmark actually supports this. And the crowd on their Discord has actually put out more maps, user-made maps to make the games even better. And so, you buy it for $5, you print a couple copies, laminate them, and call them good. That's what I'm doing. So this is by far and away, with Voyages, the best price per play game I have ever bought in my whole life. So it's just whether or not this is right for you. And if you are not a fan of roll and writes, this isn't going to change your mind either, though. So that's the main reason. You don't buy it because I guess it's cheap, right? You don't buy games because they cost less. I'm looking at the Pacific Ocean game that I said earlier. This is a better way of saying it. Don't buy games just because they're cheap because you can get them. Because then you end up selling a bunch of cheap games later for even less. You know what I'm talking about, right? I know what I'm talking about with this one. So I'm trying to sell games right now, so that's why I say I can get away with it. But that's what you just got to think about. Don't buy because of price, buy because of play. Can you get it to the table? That is the main gist, the main common theme of all of these games. Are they worth it? Worth is very subjective. But that's for you to decide as the ticker counts down, literally on this one, metaphorically on the rest. There you go. Nice little cue at the end there with Waypoints actually counting down the seconds. I didn't time that. I didn't even recognize that. So apparently just my credit card is going to get, charged here in about 6 seconds. But there you go. Quick hits, reasons not to back, reasons to back, reasons to just think about it again. Because you know me, I'm a big crowdfunding proponent. But don't FOMO, buy what's right for you, buy what's actually going to get played. Don't fall into the traps. So, how do you feel about things now? There you go. It's been a couple weeks since I did one of these, so plenty of games to talk about in this one, a little bit of everything, and see where it goes. July's going to be interesting. July is low-key. I'm sure we'll have some games to talk about, though, because we always do. I just love talking about board games. Just love it. So, there you go. Stay classy. Have a great freaking day. Hit the little bell, subscribe, whatever thing, too, if you want. See you around.